Project for today is going to be this John Deere 116. I've had this one for a couple years. I had it just stored away. I had a truck box with a truck topper on it. I just use it as kind of a shed, as you can see. But it kind of got forgotten about out there, and the mice have got into it. I don't know if you saw, one scurried out the side when we were picking it up. So I know we got a mouse nest under that cover. I see some junk poking out. I think this was supposed to be a runner when I picked it up. I'm not sure what this thing here is. Looks kind of like a electronic fuel shutoff of some sort or something. It's a vent coming up to there. I've never seen that on one. This is just a Briggs 16 horse opposed twin. So I think we're gonna, I'll hook a battery to it, just make sure it whips over. It's got a pretty intense cover on top here, but it's just a couple of screws here we can pull off. It does have a battery in it, but I'm assuming that's dead. It's got a 5-speed transmission. The deck, well, it does spin. Those blades actually look pretty decent yet. We'll see. That's not a good sign when that's broke and they get water in there, but it was stored kind of inside. It looks pretty dry. Doesn't smell terrible. So it might be okay on that front. If it had non-ethanol fuel in it, will be okay. I didn't think it would have any juice, but I just thought I'd try. I'll hook a jumper pack to it and we'll see if it'll turn over. And if it does, then we'll probably work on cleaning all that mouse nest and stuff out of there. I'll take this air cleaner cover off though first to see. I don't want to suck a mouse nest in if we got one shoot through the air filter. Oh, that still looks really clean yet. Yeah, boy, I could smell that mouse nest though. That's one thing, once they stink something up, it's pretty hard to get rid of that smell. But I think I did put some dryer sheets in, but they kind of lose their smell if it's too long. You got to refresh them every 6 months or so, otherwise the mice just kind of end up building their nests out of them. But they do deter them for a few months. But I'll get the jumper pack and we'll see if this thing will whip over for us. Well, we'll give it a shot just for the heck of it, see if it'll fire up. I don't have too high of hopes. I'm shocked that actually started. We'll have to take all those covers off and clean that mouse nest out of it, and we got to air up the tires on it, and we'll see if everything else works on it. That's pretty surprising that started after sitting that long. It had to have had non-ethanol fuel in it to run that good. Oh, there's a mouse crawling around up in there. I don't know if you can see him down in there. You see his poke his head out. That was probably quite a shock to him to have that engine start up. Oh, there he goes. Hopefully he goes out the door. I have the door open. I thought he'd go for the door open there, but I don't see where he went. Well, he'll figure it out that he's getting evicted today. Well, first thing we'll do is take this cover off. I've never seen one quite like that. That's quite the cover. It doesn't stop too much, but the big chunks, it's got a pretty big holes in it. And we can get this cover off of here so we can vacuum that nest out of there. These are 7/16 it looks like. I think it's got a couple under here, yeah. That one Craftsman, that red Craftsman I did a video on, I did the same thing. I had to take the cover off, but that one was a bad coil. That's why we were taking it off. I think that's pretty close to all of them, and then the dipstick. Oh, and there's two back here. You might know those are the ones that are hard to get at. Have to get a wrench for those. I got a ratchet wrench that fits down in here. Yeah, that mouse nest really stinks. We're gonna have to wheel this thing outside. Maybe I'll just blow it out with air out there instead of using the shop vac, spreading that smell all over. I think this battery actually might be good still too. It seemed like it started taking a charge. I'm gonna have to take this dipstick out of here, and then I should be able to get my fingers in there at that other bolt. And they're just a couple of 5/16 bolts and hold a little bracket for the dipstick here. That little piece there. I'm going to try to leave the dipstick in. If I can get my fingers in there to get that bolt, but I don't think I can, so we'll have to pull it out of there. Just pulls out. Fits on a O-ring in there. Still pretty tough to get into that bolt. I don't know if this doesn't seem to come out, this bar here. Need somebody with little fingers for this one. I think this is one I'm probably just going to leave out of here, because I don't think I'll ever get my fingers in there to get it started again. I might be able to pull that battery out and get through there. It looks like there's an open space. But that looks like it might be more trouble than it's worth. Also, it's bolted down. I'll get the cables disconnected first. They had plenty of washers on this thing, that's for sure. I'm not really sure why this one got junked. I got it from another small engine shop. He said a customer left it there and he just didn't want it anymore, I guess. I don't think there was a heck of a lot wrong with it from what I heard, but I think the rear end had an oil leak, because it looked like they had a plug they drilled in it to fill it with oil. But these gear drive ones, you can kind of just fill them with a heavier oil if you got seals leaking. That heavier oil will, either it won't leak at all or it'll at least keep the leaking at bay for a while. So you only have to fill it twice a season maybe or something. Get one of them out of there. There we go. And now I can kind of get to that bolt. Still not the easiest, but boy, that smell is just awful, that mouse nest. Okay. Now we should be able to pull that cover off. We're ready for the unveiling here. I'm gonna have to see if I can get it over this fuel line they ran right over the top. I might have to disconnect that, but it's not looking good under that cover. Yeah, I'm just gonna have to disconnect that fuel line. I didn't see a shut off on here, so it's got a pretty tiny fuel filter there too. There we go. Now we can take the cover off. It's not terrible, but it's not great either. I'll vacuum out some of the bulk of it and then I'll bring it outside and we'll clean it out the rest of the way. This coil here, that's kind of an interesting thing from the past here. That was a points coil, and then this little piece here was an add-on piece that you got rid of your points, and that changed this to electronic ignition. I remember selling kits for those. They used to have a Briggs & Stratton kit. I don't even know if they still make it anymore, but it was an add-on kit for solid state ignition. A lot of people switched over their Briggs that way when they had trouble with the points. I didn't really ever mind the points too much. As long as you kept them dry and clean, it wasn't really that big a deal. To maybe once every few years you had to get in there to clean the points up or replace them, but a lot of people just don't want to mess with it, so I can kind of understand that. It's kind of trouble free once you get the solid state. Well, that's not too bad. I'll take it out and blow it out with air, get it the rest of the way clean. It's kind of packed down in there farther. In one of the other videos, if you guys watched it, you might remember I said my shop vac quit working on me, and that was this Craftsman super old shop vac. I got this at an auction a lot of years ago for like $2 because when you shut it off it made a little squealing noise. And there's a bearing just in the top there. I just sprayed some lube in there and it's been working fine ever since, until one day it quit working and I didn't really try to fix it, but then a few days later I needed it, and all I did was wiggle this wire and there was a short in the wire coming up in there, so it's still plugging away, I guess. So I guess I didn't need to get a new one of them. I didn't get one yet, but I still might get one just to have a backup because this gets used a lot here in the shop. But we'll get this pushed outside and clean it out the rest of the way. We'll see if this tire will take some air. It's got the valve stem on the back side, but it was actually where I could get at it. I'm guessing it's going to leak down pretty fast, so probably going to have to put a tube in it. Yeah, it's leaking pretty fast, but it should be good enough so we can get it outside and we can clean that nest out the rest of the way. This one's got a tube in it, so that might actually hold. I haven't really tried the steering yet, but it doesn't look like there's grease fittings on these. Usually, oh yeah, they're down in here on the side there. So we'll pump some grease in there too. Alright, got it outside, ready to blow it off. I did put the dipstick back in so we don't get any junk down in the oil. Well, that actually cleaned up pretty nice. I don't think this mower is in too bad a shape compared to what I thought it was. I probably would have fixed it a while back if I would have known it was this decent of a mower. And these Briggs Opposed Twins were a really tough engine as long as you kept up with the oil changes. They don't have an oil filter, so you got to make sure you change the oil every 40 to 50 hours or so. I think that's lined up enough. Throw a couple of these bolts in. I like to get them all started by hand first to make sure we can get everything lined up. I think I am just going to leave that one out since it's so hard to get my fingers in there. The mice didn't look like they chewed any of the wires either, which is surprising because they had quite a mouse house in there. I think I'll see if I can get that on the socket and slide it in there. That's one of the biggest downfalls about the area I'm in, is the mice get in everything so bad. When I first bought this shop, it was just full of mice, as I pretty much rebuilt the shop tore it down to the studs and redid everything. It wasn't insulated. It was kind of insulated, but not too much. So the mice had gotten into what there was of the fiberglass. They love that fiberglass insulation. I don't know how they can handle that in their mouth when they're carrying it around. And this one's being a tough one. There, I think I got it started. Run that in a little bit. And we'll go to the other side here. And that one was easy enough to get started. And this one's gonna be kind of tough too. Well, that was easier than I thought. And that should be all of them. Get that piece back in there for to hold the dipstick down. So I gotta switch to a 5/16 socket. And that kind of went. Like that. Kind of got to turn the dipstick to get it lined up with that slot that it goes down into. Those don't need super tight. And then we'll run this fuel line back around. I don't think this is how it was supposed to run, but it's what we got, so we'll just leave it because this fuel line actually seems like it's okay still, which is kind of surprising because I think it sat for a while before I even got it, and it sat for a couple more years after that. I'm bad for buying projects and thinking I have time to do them, and then it ends up taking me a few years to get to them. I've been getting a little bit better since I started doing YouTube. I've been trying to get to my projects faster. Oh, forgot to tighten this one back here. We got this big cover. Goes on there something like that. I kind of just use they're almost like sheet metal screws. That's kind of the problem with this one. The holes are too big, so a mouse can go right through them. But I suppose if they put smaller holes in this, they'd end up getting clogged up and you wouldn't get the airflow. So I think the next thing we'll do is I'll get the battery put back in it, and then we'll swap this front tire out. I have a whole nother rim and tire that we'll throw on there, and that one was so cracked out, I think even if I put a tube in it, it's gonna end up popping through there pretty shortly. So we're better off just replacing the whole thing. Maybe I should have waited to put that cover on until I got the battery in here. I think I'll leave the hold down off the battery for now, just in case this battery doesn't come back around. I don't want to have to take that on and off again. And we're not doing any speed racing with the thing, so it should stay put. Didn't seem to smoke or anything when I started it up the first time, so we'll see what it does when it gets warm. The oil was so clean, I think I'm just gonna leave that alone also. That was like brand new. So now we'll get that tire swapped over, and then we'll be ready to take it out and see if the rest of the deck and the transmission stuff is okay. Well, we'll slide a jack under here. These just have a snap ring that holds them on, and it's kind of covered in grease here, so I gotta clean it off to see what I'm doing. There it is. There's the snap ring. Oh, there's no washer, you know. Some of them have a washer. Yeah, that was, you can see it's all blown out right there, so that would have been a good one to try to put a tube in. So normally I would say that you should put some grease on this, but this axle's already pretty greased up. So I'm just gonna slide the new one on here. Just making sure I can get it that grease fitting even with the tire on there. Throw this snap ring on. There, it went in the groove. I've got a different cap here too. This one's got a little crack in it, but that one was busted out in the center. So those caps are kind of difficult to pull off there, but if you have I think a lot of guys call these a crow's foot. You can get in there and pry behind it and pop those caps off pretty easily. So this is another tool that is really nice to have in the toolbox. There's a lot of stuff like that that's hard to get behind. You can just put it in like that and pry it off of there. I think now we'll get it back on the ground here, and I'll clean up a few tools and we'll take it out and see if the deck works. Well, I got the jumper pack hooked up. We'll see if it'll fire up again. It's been idling for a while. It's got a little bit of a hiccup in it, but it's probably running some of that old gas through it that was left in the tank. So we'll try flipping the blades on and we'll mow a little bit with it. Well, it seemed to work pretty good. The deck is pretty loud, but these were a pretty noisy deck anyway. I think the deck's louder than the engine actually, but it sounded like the spindle over here might be kind of dry, but just feeling it, I mowed for probably 10 minutes or so, and it doesn't feel warm at all, so I'm not sure if that's just the nature of these. I don't feel any hot bearings or anything, and usually that's the first sign they're going to be dry, is if they feel warm, and nothing really does. So that should be okay. These were just kind of noisy anyway. The engines were real quiet though. Those opposed twins were a nice, quiet, smooth running engine. But it must have a crankshaft seal that's leaking when it's sitting. When I first turned the blades on, that's what all this speckling is from. It shot a bunch of oil out off of the top of that pulley. So it must have filled that pulley up with oil when it was sitting, but it doesn't look like it leaked down any farther than that, so it couldn't have been too bad a leak if it sat for 2 years and that's all it had leaked out because it was still close to full when I checked it. So I think this one is good to go for now. It's decent enough that I can mow with it, and this is one of the types of mowers you can run over pretty much whatever you want, and those decks are pretty tough, so this can be a good trail mower or something the way it is without doing too much more work to it, other than maybe cleaning it up a little bit more. But that hood didn't clean up too bad. The front has a crack in the front here that runs down there, but other than that, it wasn't too bad. But that's going to do it for this one. If you like this sort of thing, like the videos and subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you on the next one.